What happens when we stop using punishment as a response for youth substance use in schools and replace it with education and empathy instead? In this episode, my guests Megan Gordon, Program Director at Page Alliance for Community Action, and Nikki Clark, Director of School Administration at Page County Public Schools, are working together to create a different approach to youth substance use intervention, one rooted in trust, education, relationships, and community support. Instead of relying on suspension or even filing criminal charges, they built a program that helps young people better understand substance use, trauma, coping, and the factors that may be driving their choices in the first place. Through partnerships with educators, counselors, recovery communities, researchers, school resource officers, and even the justice system, they've created a wraparound model that reduces stigma and gives young people a safe space to be heard instead of being judged. And the impact has been significant, with almost no repeat offenders since the program has begun. We talk about the importance of consistency, relationship building, and creating environments where young people feel comfortable enough to ask for help, look out for one another, and realize that they're not, quote, bad kids, but young people navigating real challenges who need support and connection. They're setting the example of what it means to lead with empathy, not just changing the outcomes, but helping young people see their potential, make healthier choices, and create stronger communities in the process. Let's get into it. We're meeting with real leaders shaping a healthier future for our young people. We dig into what motivates them and how their work makes a difference. I'm CJ Sturmer, and this is the Champions for Youth Podcast. Megan and Nikki, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
You all have done a great job of creating this program that goes beyond this idea of punishment in schools when young people are discovered with different substances. You all have really pivoted to take a different approach to try and swim upstream to identify the problem and try to do something about it without saying, go to detention or, whatever the case may be, and kids get in trouble at school. Before we dive into the program and the stuff that you all do, I'm really kind of curious of what drove you all to this path and what was your motivation for getting into this work and how to program?
My motivation was really becoming a parent of 3 young adult children. And I knew when I had my first one, that I didn't want substances to be at the core of their childhood and their young adulthood. So I started working with the schools and I became a parent representative on our local coalition, which is now a nonprofit. That's the nonprofit that I'm the executive director of. And our whole focus is really to keep our youth healthy and drug-free. So it really was a personal choice because everybody has a story. And in my childhood, in my story, there was a lot of substance use. It was normalized, especially alcohol. And I didn't want the same for my child. And I knew I didn't really want the same for the community that I lived in. And so I got into prevention work and here I am.
And here you are. That's a great story. And I often find that when I have these conversations with people, it usually is because it was so personal. Like it was a reflection of my life and my own life experience that led me down the path of I need to do something. I totally relate to that. I'm curious about you.
So I'm a career switcher by trade. So I got into teaching because I wanted to work with children. I wanted them to see the impact that anything they decide to do has. I have my own story as well. I grew up basically in a single family home and needed support at times. And the school system was that for me when I was growing up. So I wanted that as I had my own families. Our kids sort of grew up together a little bit. And as I started teaching, I saw that when I reached out, kids responded. And then as I moved into administration, my heart ached because we were seeing this uptick in use. And as we saw the uptick in use at the time, our discipline standards were different and we were putting kids out and then really not solving the issue at hand. And so we sat down one day and started thinking about what can we do differently to provide intervention for our students and make sure they're successful and can possibly overcome.
And when you say use, are we talking about specific types of substances or was it a mix of all different things?
For us, it's typically nicotine, THC.
Okay.
That's what we're predominantly seeing in the school system, but we know others are out there in the community.
So I would imagine vapes are probably a big part of that.
Yes. Vapes are huge. Yes, vapes are a huge part of that. I think 2018, 2019, we survey the youth every year in the school just to gauge to make sure what we're doing is working and we're hitting the right mark. 2018, 2019, when vaping really hit, I mean, we just saw a huge uptick. And the year that I believe, started this program specifically, we saw a really big increase in THC. It wasn't just nicotine; it was THC in the products.
I think it's really interesting that you say that, because I've actually talked to Michelle Peace, who's been on this program before from VCU. We talked about the research that she's done, where she's actually taken these vapes apart that weren't supposed to have THC in them, and they did. Is that what we're referring to here as well? Like,
some of it is THC. It's the intent is for it to be THC.
got it.
But others, they aren't sure. We actually send our vapes to that project.
Oh.
And we receive the data, and that's part of the program. Is we educate the students in the course along with the administrators and other adults what they're finding in some of this, and it's helping to it's eye-opening for them, because a lot of the things they never really thought were in them. And even when you're talking about content of the specific substance, whether it's nicotine or THC, the strength of it, they didn't realize that how potent it is.
And that's huge important. I don't think even adults sometimes, I don't think they really realize what they're inhaling. Even when I have conversations with some of my friends that participate in nicotine vapes, and I talk to them about, what I've learned, that is actually to educate them, to your point, people are shocked, like just completely shocked. So I totally understand where you're coming from. Amazing, unique partnerships that you're working with someone that we've talked with before, that's a researcher who's done incredible work. I encourage you all to please go back and definitely listen to that episode. But speaking of really unique partnerships, the two of you have had a relationship for quite some time. And I think the story about how you all kind of came to be to say, I want to do something together, is really, really powerful. Tell me more about how you guys met and how this partnership came to be.
Well, we met early on when our kids played sports and different things together in our community, and they still know each other today. And then our paths started crossing when she would corral me into different activities for her, polar plunge, things like that.
For the coalition.
You need to get involved.
Yes, you need to get
Please
involved.
sign up, right?
And so, but then we both had a passion, like we both saw the need for supports in our community, that we just don't have a lot of resources. So we were always brainstorming about things we could do, or she would ask, can I come in there and do this? And we absolutely bring it in. And so then when we realized we were seeing the uptick in our THC, we came back to the table and started, working together for a couple months of planning of partnerships and who else can we reach out to make this program come alive.
That's an amazing partnership. And it shows when I watch you all interact and you tell the story, and I've heard the work that you're doing. It is very obvious that you all have found a very unique partnership within each other, because you share a similar mission and you have this history. And so it made it really easy for you all to collaborate on this. So tell me a little bit more about what the program is that you all developed, this model, and what exactly is it designed to do?
The model was, because we were seeing the increase in actual THC use, we were seeing an increase in out of school suspension, which is, at the time, that wasn't beneficial for anyone, not our students, not our school system. It impacted instructional learning, and we weren't giving them the interventions they needed. So we sat down as a team and came up with another approach to discipline and support that kept them in school, but also provided them resources. And it wasn't just from me. They would look at me, oh, Miss Clark, you're just over exaggerating. But when it comes from multiple sources, then they were like, oh, wait a minute, like the VCU program that she referenced earlier.
Also, I think part of it too was the Commonwealth wanted to start charging. And we didn't. We wanted to keep our youth out of the system. You don't want them going into the justice system.
And by charging, you mean like arrest, like with actual charges?
Like charges.
Yep.
Right. Wow. So that was what they wanted to do. Their approach was, let's just get them, quote, out of the schools and into the system, which there's plenty of data to suggest that is not the best approach to dealing with these things, especially with young people. That's fascinating.
And I think it was a reaction to they saw the increase as well. And they were also trying to figure out how else. And so that was their first reaction, but they came to the table with us as well.
Because the spike was just so alarming.
Right. So, but this was a good solution that worked for everybody and kind of keeps them out of that. It's an option to come through the course, and then it's in lieu of charging them and in lieu of the out of school suspension, and then provides resources and connections with not just us and not just our recovery community, but also the justice system, our SROs. It is a really a whole wraparound service.
Wow, so like it really encompasses everyone in the school. How are young people part of the program building? Like, do they have input in a way that helps improve?
Yes. So initially, they probably didn't have as much when we first started establishing it, but each group that goes through the program, we have after every class, we have a reflection time and feedback time where they can tell us, oh, no, we didn't like this. This didn't work for us, or
Mhm.
this might have pushed us in the opposite direction, or this really was impactful. Can we get more of that, like recovery speakers and things like that? So
Wow.
each time we meet, they
Mhm.
do get a time to reflect and give us feedback.
That's great. So they have an opportunity to like kind of be in the present of the moment, what they went through, and be able to honestly reflect on that. And then giving that feedback on that experience to them must be really valuable. Like that then shows the value in the relationship that they have with you all, and knowing that their voice actually mattered, even when they probably felt like they were going something through something so negative and like I'm in trouble and these things. And you really, it seems like kind of took that stigma a little bit away from that to make it more comfortable for them to be able to facilitate these conversations.
Really, when you get down to it, it was creating that space and building that trust with the youth so they knew that they had resources and a community around them and that they felt safe to even, ask for help
Right.
or let us know what was going on. So by the end of the course, by the end of the 4-week course, the kid, that is their biggest takeaway, I believe, is that they felt like they were heard and that they had a space where they could be safe to say what they wanted.
Wow, that's really, really powerful. So it's a 4-week course that they go through. Walk me through a little bit how that works. Does it start with someone's been identified as a potential, or someone got in trouble and was unfortunately caught with possession of something? Is that sort of the starting point, or is someone identified early on? How does that work?
So there's a couple approaches to
Okay.
that. First, it's either they've gotten caught with it and
Mhm.
we've identified them that way, or we have a drug screening program through policy at our school division that is not disciplinary in nature. It's more for let's get in front of it and we might see them in that case and bring them in. And so they identify and then we bring them in 2 times a week for 4 weeks for about an hour and 15 minutes. We provide food to them and we provide transportation so that we can ensure there's no restrictions on them being able to participate.
Wow, that's awesome. You're really making it easy, more accessible. Talk to me a little bit more about the course itself. So, when these young people are experiencing this program, what exactly is the content, if you will, that they receive?
So we do a lot of definitions.
Mhm.
In the
Mhm.
first time around, we did it all at the very beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a gallery walk to ensure that we were all understanding the terms the same way,
Right.
and that we truly understood what they were.
Level setting, getting on the
Mhm.
same page. Yeah,
Yes.
Mhm.
that makes sense.
And it's not just substance specific. We talk about addiction, misuse versus abuse, reporting
Reporting.
versus snitching. That's usually a good topic, especially with our SROs, because
Right.
there is a real difference. We talk about coping and ACEs and trauma and building
Wow.
resilience. And so we
Bring
at first tried to identify all those, but then realized we couldn't do that in one session.
Yeah.
And then so we incorporated into all of the sessions.
to all of our topic
Mhm.
areas, which is, basically, our VCU. We do bring that data back
Mhm.
in so the students can see truly what is in their vape. Recovery groups, law enforcement comes in and shares stories about what they're seeing. Commonwealth attorney comes in and speaks as well, just to give them
Wow.
a avenue of what next type
Yeah,
steps.
like this is what could happen
Hmm.
if you were to get charged, or this is where this
Right.
can go. We also do a media. We focus a lot
Social.
because we know we come here and there's a lot of focus on media and how that influences use, like social media influencers and just the media in general. So we have a session that really focuses all on that and how that's driving use.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, because I mean, you look at what's in the media today, online, TV,
Mhm.
movies, it's glorified. It's everywhere, right? It's like technology. You just can't, it's hard to get away from it. I like the emphasis on this education piece. And yes, we're defining it, making sure everyone understands. But I like how you mentioned also too that you talk about ACEs, right? You talk about childhood trauma. You talk about the things that can contribute, because I always say this here that young people are not monolithic. Issues are not in silos, right? We're talking about a whole human here that has their own unique life experiences. ACEs, sometimes I feel like we just have so many issues going on that people sometimes forget to mention this as well, and that this is a real thing that is proven and they exist, right? And I think that informing of young people what those are, we talk about it as professionals, but I don't know that I've heard a lot of young people getting exposed to defining those and having conversations about what those actually mean, not just in general, but to you as a person.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I think that's really, really cool for someone at such a young age to understand, yeah, something on a scientific level, but having this moment of reflection to your point of, wait, this is about me. Wait, I know what you're talking about. And that's I would imagine probably even liberating sometimes for some young people to realize I'm not a problem. I'm not a bad kid, right? Do you have the experience with that where you get some of these young people and they have these feelings like that?
Mhm.
Oh yes. And I think I'll back up a second. I think it starts with at the beginning we share our stories
Mhm.
Right.
to set the tone so
Mhm.
that by the time we get to ACEs and coping strategies, they're able to start sharing theirs. But we've had several students that came back to us and said, thank you so much.
Mm.
Look at me. And as I said earlier, Mrs. Clark, you preach all the time, but now I get it. Or, they will come back and say, I had no idea. I really thought you didn't understand what I was going through. And they come back and they share and they're checking in. So it's those moments where you see the light bulb go off and you're like,
Right.
okay, we got somewhere today.
Yeah.
And that's important.
Yeah, especially in education. I when I talk to a lot of educators and people that work in school systems, like you talk about these light bulb moments, like when someone, gets reading or those types of things. And I think sometimes maybe we forget that as younger people get older into young adulthood, that that's still valuable. And I think that that's really powerful. Talk to me a little bit more about some of these light bulbs, these aha moments, or these wow, Mrs. Clark, I get it.
I think we had a gentleman one time who, he just thought he was bad. Like
Mhm.
he had been caught with it. He thought he was bad, and then after several sessions, he stayed after school one day and he was like, I get it now. And I looked at him and I was like, what do you mean? And he said, I realize that I have things I can do to get through this and that I have people that will understand because his parents supported him, but he also knew that disappointed them and that hurt him. So he wouldn't talk. So it was giving him that outlet to know. And he would pop into the counselor's
Mhm.
office that was there because we have a counselor at all of our sessions and he would pop in and just have a chat. But it was another way for him to have an outlet to say, I'm being tempted today. Or, hey, I'm worried. Actually, he would come in and say, I'm worried about this person. Can you check on them for me today?
Wow.
He wouldn't give, specifics, but enough
Right.
that we knew time to look.
Reporting versus snitching type of mentality that he felt comfortable. Wow, for you to create this environment of safety to be able to not feel like you said, like he was snitching, but then be able to say, I want to say something because I care about this person. Like he's gonna remember that forever.
Mhm.
And being able to reach out, that's really, really powerful. And I can only imagine how that young man must be feeling today and feel like, for him to see his own light and that progression that he has in his own path is huge. And I can only imagine how that must made you all feel to be able to see even just one person really see their own light. Is that common? Do you all find that the success rate of this is really high? Like this it's working.
Mhm.
Yeah, classes we've had, we've only had one repeat offender. So,
Out of
Yeah.
how many?
let's see, we had first year we started, there were 8,
Mhm.
and then that was one school, and we expanded to 2 schools the following year for a total of 8 new people. And then this year we've had a total of 8 across 4 schools. So to only have
Wow.
one and all of that we've, had to say, okay, we got to come up with something else.
That's a very high success rate with a pretty substantial sample size in a short period of time. Something you're doing is clearly working. And it's really, honestly, really cool story to hear. I don't often hear, sometimes these positive moments, and especially when young people feel like they aren't being looked at or they're not given their chance. And this is a program that's really not just giving that opportunity, but I feel like really shining a light on what's possible. I feel like sometimes they make movies about these things, but to actually see it in real life and actually happen and for this person to now feel like that they have something to move forward on, I think is really, really powerful.
Well, and I think it's twofold. It's for us too.
Mhm.
As I see this young man in the
Yeah.
community and see the path he is on,
Mhm.
it means a lot. You can look and say, okay, he did it. So that's reassuring for us too.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. How long has the program been around?
The second half of 22, 23.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it's still relatively new. It's not like a 10-year-old program.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty great growth from here. What is your plan to expand?
Well, we've already been expanding each year. So we went from one school to 2 schools to our high schools. And then now this year we've expanded to our 2 middle schools as well.
Okay. So now we're getting larger ages.
Larger
Mhm.
age groups.
Mhm.
And so right now we're just sort of testing that out, wanting to see
Mhm.
how this goes with the mix of a middle school, high school type atmosphere of what we need to do. But that'll be our summer planning to
Yeah.
see where we go from there.
Wow, that's interesting. So we're going into middle school. So we're also seeing these same substance use and this idea of getting in trouble happening really early on. It's not just in high school. We're
Right.
talking about
Mhm.
kids that are preteen.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
6th grade, 6th, 7th, 8th grade.
wow.
Mhm.
Wow.
So start small. I guess one thing is we started small. We
Right.
started with just one school, then expanded, and then now we're across hopefully the only 4 schools that we'll need to be. Hopefully we don't have to dip down into elementary school, but definitely start small and then
Start
grow.
small. That's a really great message. And I think, one of the questions I have for you is how do we help empower people to think like that and help replicate the success? And the one example that you just gave is starting small, I think is a really great example. You don't have to feel like you're jumping off this giant cliff just to try and make something happen. It takes one person saying, I want to make a change, you asking for help. And now you have this incredible program that you're now dominoing.
I think for us, it's been consistency, and we probably
Mhm.
learned that early on.
Mhm.
When it was one school, our administrator, our counselor, and then our partners were all there every day, and that made for a safe space. As we moved to 2 schools, the communication of that, the administrators couldn't be there all the time, or and it became a little harder to have those open and frank conversations. And so we regrouped that summer, and we said, look, we have to commit one administrator, to that, whatever you're going to do, and a counselor. And I think that improves the relationship building, and it
Sure.
improves their willingness to talk, because that's what it comes down to, is them exposing themselves to what's happening and why it's happening.
Right.
And so that, I think for us, that's been a big growth factor with consistency, maintaining those relationships.
I was going to say relationships. Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely not discounting bringing anyone in. We talked about our school resource officers, juvenile justice, other law enforcement, and then our recovery community. I mean,
Right.
that's been huge. That's been I think one of the best
Yes.
sessions to watch is the young adults interact with the recovery community, ask the questions, really open up, get the advice. It's good for both sides, because while we're a prevention coalition, we partner heavily with our recovery community, because a lot of it's reducing stigma and building a recovery community too. So seeing that relationship and watching those sessions, that's been phenomenal. So just tapping into the relationships that you have. You may not have all of them, but use the ones you have and then try to continue to grow.
We talk a lot about partnerships. And I think what you all have done, not only the partnerships with each other, but you really have thought outside of the box, right? Recovery community, how impactful to hear someone else's,
Yes.
journey to recovery and what they've been through and finding relation in that. And that's just really powerful, especially if there's someone coming and telling the story of how they were younger and how maybe they wish that they had a program like this, right? And so I can imagine finding ways to incorporate stories into that here. And I think the relationship building is important, but not just for the partnerships, but I think that what you've done is the relationships that you're developing with the youth.
Mhm.
You have to build that trust, and that comes with consistency and making sure they see value in what you do. And I think that you all have done a really good job of that. And I think that anyone that works with young people should really be thinking about that and the success that you all have had. It's really remarkable. I commend you for the work. And it's nice to see that we are giving our young people a really good positive path and understanding that you do have value and that your life has a lot of meaning and there's so much potential for you. And I think that's awesome. So thank you so much for what you do, Megan and Nikki. I really sincerely appreciate your time today.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you for having us.
A huge thank you to the Virginia Foundation for Healthy Youth and Prevention Connections for their support. And thanks to Mauricio Reyes for creating that great music score. Don't forget to share this with others, because the only way we can make real change is if we do it together. And hey, if you like today's conversation, go ahead and give us that 5-star review. Now go out there, everybody, go do good. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.